The stars outside the Valari palace window were cold and distant. Much like Princess Elenia's heart, she stood still in her silver robe, her hands folded behind her back. Long violet hair shimmered like liquid metal in the starlight, but her golden eyes burned with silent anger. The room was quiet, but inside her mind, a storm was raging. A holographic message flickered in the air before her. It was from the United Terran Coalition. A human man appeared on the screen, tall, brown-skinned, short dark hair, and a scar near his eye. He looked serious, not at all like the loud, emotional creatures she had read about. Captain Darius Holt. That was his name. And soon, he would be her husband. Elenia's father, Emperor Vieric, entered the room. His face as unreadable as ever. "It is done," he said simply. "The council has agreed. The war is over." Lanya turned to him. "And I must marry a human to make it so." "It is the cost of peace," he replied. "You know this." She said nothing. She wanted to scream, to demand a better way. The truth was clear. The war between the Valari and the humans had gone on too long. Both sides had lost cities, soldiers, and hope. A treaty had been signed at last, but it needed a symbol. A bond, and so a royal marriage was chosen, Alanya. The youngest daughter of the Valari Empire was the one to be given away. 3 days later, she stood on the landing platform of the Imperial Sky Tower. A black and silver Terran starship slowly lowered itself in front of her. Its design was sharp, practical, and ugly to her eyes. The doors opened. Out stepped Captain Darius Holt. He wore a dark blue military uniform, neat and strong. His eyes scanned the area carefully like a soldier, always watching for danger. But when he looked at Elenia, something softened in his face. He bowed respectfully, not like a servant, but as an equal. "Princess Alanya," he said in a clear voice, "it is an honor." She tilted her chin. "I am not here by choice, Captain." "I know," he said. "Neither am I." That answer surprised her. She had expected false kindness, or perhaps fear. But his voice was calm, honest. "My orders are to marry you and represent Earth," he continued. "But I will not force anything. I believe respect is earned." Lanya narrowed her eyes. "Is that how humans think?" He gave a small smile. "The good ones do." Later, aboard the Terran ship Icarus Dawn, Elenia sat in her assigned quarters. They were clean and simple, with a window showing the stars. No luxury, no glowing silk walls, no gentle air songs like her home. She was truly in another world now. The crew avoided her. She felt their stares. She could hear their whispers with her telepathic senses. Watch her, she's Valari. She could read your mind, you know? Isn't she like royalty or something? They were afraid of her. That was expected. Her people were known for their powers and their pride. Still, it stung. Only Captain Darius treated her normally. He greeted her politely each morning, asked if she needed anything, and gave her space.
Guess.
He never tried to touch her, never invaded her thoughts. He acted with quiet discipline, like a man who had seen much war and carried its weight. One evening, as they traveled through hyperspace toward the neutral world Karoth for the wedding ceremony, Alenia reached out gently with her mind. Just a whisper to see what kind of person he was. His mental walls were strong, but not like Valerie's shields. His mind was open, natural, raw. She felt pain, thrilled memories of fire, screams, comrades lost. But also patience, duty, and something strange for a soldier. Kindness. She pulled back quickly. Shocked the next day, she spoke to him during lunch in the small officer's lounge. "Why did they choose you for this marriage?" She asked Darius. Looked up from his meal. "Because I don't hate your people. I didn't ask for power." "That's a rare thing among humans," she said. He chuckled. "And among Valari, rarer still." He leaned forward slightly. "Truth is, they picked me because I know how to make peace. During the siege of Dura's colony, I rescued civilians from both sides. I was nearly killed by your people." Lanya stiffened. "I don't blame you," he added, "but I know what war looks like. I'd rather try peace, even if it means this, strange marriage." She was quiet. Then she said, "You're not what I expected." He smiled. "That makes two of us." That night, Alanya stood by the window. Again, she looked out at the stars and thought of her life so carefully trained, shaped by duty, cold and perfect. Now that life was changing. She was aboard a human ship, flying to a human future, married to a man she didn't choose. And yet, he hadn't tried to own her. He hadn't demanded her trust. He had simply shown her respect. Maybe, just maybe, this wouldn't be a prison. Maybe it could become something else. As she closed her eyes, she whispered to herself, I am not just a daughter of the Valari. I am more. Princess Alanya walked through the long metallic halls of the Terran ship Icarus Dawn. The air smelled sharp clean, strange. The lights above were bright and white, unlike the soft golden glow of her home palace. She could feel the humming of the engines under her feet. Everything here was alive. In its own way, the Icarus Dawn wasn't just metal and wires. It was part organic, fused with living neural tech. Humans had grown parts of it in labs, linked it with artificial intelligence, and created something both machine and creature. To Alanya, it felt like the ship had a mind. Not a strong one like a Valari, but curious, watching. She reached out with her mind and gently touched the walls. The ship responded with a low, welcoming pulse. I see you, she whispered, and it whispered back simple emotions. Calm, interest, trust. She pulled away and smiled just a little. Later that day, she stood on the command deck. The crew worked silently, focused on controls and sensors. When she entered, they all turned. Some nodded. Others avoided her gaze. They were still afraid. Captain. Darius stood near the center console. When he saw her, he gave a short nod. Good morning, Princess. You don't have to call me that, she said. You may use my name. He raised an eyebrow, surprised. All right. Good morning, Alanya. She stepped closer. What are they thinking? Your crew? They look at me like I'm a weapon. Darius hesitated. They lost friends in the war. Some saw Valar ships destroy cities. Trust takes time. Fear is easy, she said. Trust is not. He gave a small nod. You understand that more than most humans do? That evening alarms blared across the ship. Red lights flashed in the halls. Incoming fire. Someone shouted on the intercom. Alanya rushed toward the bridge. As she arrived, she saw a glowing ripple tear through space outside the viewing window. A Valari rebel ship had emerged from hyperspace. The crew moved fast. Darius barked orders. Shields up, return signal. Identify them. The reply came quickly. No answer. They're powering weapons. They're not from the Empire, Alanya said. Her voice was calm, but her hands tightened. They're traitors. Rebels who reject the treaty. The Icarus Dawn shook as a plasma bolt hit the shields. Sparks flew from a control panel. A crew member screamed. Darius turned to Alanya. We're outgunned. If we jump now, we might damage the engines. But if we stay, I can help, she said suddenly. Darius stared at her. How? I'll shield the ship with my mind. He hesitated. That could kill you. No, she didn't wait. She stepped forward, closed her eyes, and reached deep into herself. A wave of energy burst from her soft and silver. Like moonlight, the rebel ship fired again. But this time, the bolt hit her shield and dissolved in mid-space. The bridge went silent. Everyone stared at her, even the ship was listening. Alanya collapsed minutes later, her body shaking. Darius caught her before she hit the floor. You didn't have to do that, he whispered. Yes, I did, she replied, barely conscious. This is my fight too. The next 2 days Alanya lay in the med bay. Machines checked her heart and mind. She was exhausted but alive. Darius visited often, sitting beside her, sometimes reading from a small Terran book. His voice was soft, like waves against stone. One time, she opened her eyes and asked, What are you reading? Old Earth poetry, he said. It calms me. She smiled weakly. Strange. I never thought of humans as poets. Most don't, he chuckled. But when we're not at war, we dream. He looked at her seriously. Why did you really do it? Why risk your life for my crew? Alanya looked up at the white ceiling. Because I am not just a symbol, and neither are you. If we are to build peace, we must protect it together. When she could walk again, she joined the crew in the dining hall. Everyone went quiet when she entered. A few looked nervous. Others avoided her eyes. Then one young engineer stood up. She had short red hair and grease on her hands. "Thank you," she said simply. "You saved us." The silence broke. A few crew members nodded. One even smiled. Alanya nodded back, not with royal pride, but with quiet strength. That night, she sat alone in her quarters, looking at the stars. Darius knocked gently before entering. "You did something no Valerie ever did," he said. "You earned their trust." "I didn't mean to," she said softly. "I just wanted to survive." Sat beside her. "You did more than survive. You protected us. That means something." She looked at him closely. His face was tired but kind. There was no fear in his eyes. "Only respect, Captain Darius," she said. "Why do you speak to me like this? As if I'm not different?" He gave a small laugh. "Because you're not. Not in the ways that matter." There was silence between them, but it wasn't empty. It was peaceful. The stars outside kept shining, and for the first time in years, Alanya didn't feel alone among them. The days that followed were filled with a strange mix of emotions. Ethan and Lyara spent time together, talking about everything and nothing at all. There was so much to catch up on, and yet every word felt like it carried the weight of years apart. For Ethan, it felt like coming home, but for Lyara, it was more complicated. Lyara had always been calm, composed, and a pillar of strength in her community. She had built a life for herself after Ethan's departure, one that was full of responsibility and honor. She was not the same young woman who had cared for a lost child. She had grown stronger, more independent. But now, as she stood in front of Ethan, all those years of change seemed to collapse in an instant. She could feel the past stirring inside her, reminding her of the bond they once shared. Ethan, on the other hand, had spent years in search of purpose. He had traveled across the galaxy, worked with different civilizations, and faced challenges he never could have imagined. But no matter where he went, Lyara remained in his heart. The promise he had made to her was the guiding light that had kept him going. Now that he was finally here, back on our planet, he was determined to prove that the love they had shared wasn't just a fleeting memory. Every day, they would walk the hills outside her village, talking about the places Ethan had seen, the things he had learned. Lyara listened intently, her heart both heavy and light. She could see the man he had become, strong and capable, with a deep understanding of the world around him. He was no longer the boy she had raised, and yet in his eyes, she could still see the same kindness, the same warmth. He hadn't changed entirely, but the distance between them was undeniable. "I never thought I would see this planet again," Ethan said one evening, as they sat on a rock watching the twin moons rise. "I thought about you every day. Wondered if I had made a mistake leaving. I kept my promise, but it was hard. I couldn't stop thinking about you." Lyara looked out at the horizon, her gaze distant. She didn't know how to respond. She wanted to tell him that she had waited for him, that she had thought about him too. But she also knew that things were different now. Time had passed, and with it, they had both changed. "I wasn't sure you'd remember me," Lyara said quietly. "So much time has gone by, Ethan. I tried to move on. I had to." Ethan turned to her, his eyes filled with understanding. "No, I never expected things to be the same. But I'm not asking for that. I just want to be with you again. I want to build something new, something that's ours." Lyara felt a lump form in her throat. His words were so simple, yet they carried so much weight. She had spent so many years telling herself that she didn't need him, that she could be strong on her own. But now, with him standing beside her, she realized how much she had missed him, how much she still cared. "I don't know if I can." "Just pick up where we left off," Lyra said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've changed, and so have you. Our lives are so different now." Ethan nodded, his expression serious. "I'm not asking you to go back, Lyra. I'm asking you to move forward with me. We can figure this out together." They sat in silence. For a while, the sound of the wind rustling through the trees filling the air. Liara felt the pull of something deep inside her, something she had tried to bury for so long. It was the same feeling she had had when she first met Ethan, that connection that had drawn her to him. But now, it was stronger, more powerful. She couldn't deny it any longer. She still cared for him. And maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for them to be something more than memories. The next few days were filled with quiet moments, small gestures that spoke louder than words. Ethan would help Liara with her daily tasks, and in return, she would show him parts of the planet he had never seen. They visited the sacred gardens, where Liara had once taken him as a child. He spent hours talking about the stars, the galaxy, and everything in between. Slowly, the distance between them began to close. One evening, as they sat together by a glowing river, Liara turned to Ethan with a soft smile. "You've grown into a man I never thought I would meet," she said. Her voice warm, "But I'm still not sure what this means. What are we supposed to be now? We've both had our lives, our journeys. Can we really just start over?" Ethan reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "I don't know what the future holds," he said, "but I know that I want to face it with you. I can't change the past, and neither can you. But we can shape the future together." Liara looked down at their intertwined hands, feeling the warmth of his touch. She had waited so long for this moment, and yet it felt both familiar and new. She had never expected this. She had never expected to feel this way again. But here she was, standing on the edge of something new, something beautiful. "I'm scared," Liara admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm scared of what we might lose, of what might not work out." "I'm scared too," Ethan said, his eyes meeting hers. "But I know that we have a chance. We've already overcome so much. And I believe that we can overcome whatever comes next." Liara smiled softly, the fear in her heart slowly fading. She had spent so many years trying to protect herself, trying to guard her heart from the pain of the past. But now, with Ethan by her side, she realized that maybe it was time to take a risk. Maybe it was time to believe in love again. "You're right," she said, her voice steady. "We don't have to have all the answers right now. We can figure it out together." Ethan's smile was filled with relief and joy. Together. As they sat by the river, the stars above shining brightly, Liara knew that this was just the beginning. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she was ready to find out. The days turned into weeks, and Ethan and Liara's bond grew stronger. Yet despite the growing closeness, Liara still felt unsure about opening her heart completely. She had spent so many years living without Ethan, building a life on her own. And now, with him back in her life, it was hard to imagine what their future could look like. Ethan could see the hesitation in her eyes. Even when she smiled at him, even when she laughed at his jokes, he knew her well enough to understand that she was struggling with the weight of the past and the uncertainty of the future. He had made his decision. He had come back for her, not just for the memories, but because he wanted something more. He wanted a future with her. But he also knew that Liara needed time to make that decision for herself. One evening, as they sat together beneath the stars, the familiar quiet of the night wrapping around them, Liara spoke up. "Ethan, I appreciate everything you've done. You've shown me kindness, patience, and love. But I can't help but wonder, what if we can't make this work? What if the years apart have changed us too much?" Ethan turned to face her, his heart heavy. He had expected this, but hearing her say it out loud still stung. He knew the fear behind her words. It was the same fear that had kept her distant all this time, the fear of opening up, the fear of being hurt again. "I can't deny that we've changed," Ethan said softly. "But I don't think that means we can't make it work. We've both lived our lives and we've both learned from them. But the one thing I know for sure is that I'm willing to try. I'm willing to fight for this, for us." Liara looked away, her gaze drifting to the shimmering river nearby. The reflection of the stars danced on its surface, and she thought about all the time she had been alone, looking up at those same stars, wondering if Ethan would ever come back. Now, he was here. But she was torn between the woman she had become and the girl she had been all those years ago. She'd truly go back to the past. Could she let herself trust him again? I don't know if I can do this, Liara said, her voice quiet but firm. I have so much at stake now. My responsibilities, my people. I can't just turn my back on everything I've built. I can't just throw it all away for the chance of something that might not work. Ethan's heart ached for her. He understood her doubts. He understood her fears. But he also knew that he couldn't let her push him away without giving it his all. He couldn't give up on her now, not when they had both come so far. You don't have to throw anything away, Ethan said gently. I'm not asking you to give up your life, Liara. I'm asking you to let me be a part of it. I want to be there for you, to support you in everything you do. I want to help you with your responsibilities, to be by your side as you continue to grow. I don't want to replace the life you've built. I just want to be a part of it. Liara turned back to him, her eyes filled with a mix of uncertainty and hope. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that this could work, but she wasn't sure if she was ready to take that step. She had been alone for so long, and the thought of opening her heart again was terrifying. I don't know how to trust you again, she said quietly. You left once, Ethan. You promised you would come back, but there were so many years in between. What if you leave again? What if you change and leave me behind? Ethan reached out, gently taking her hand in his. The simple touch felt like a lifeline, a connection that bridged the gap between them. I know I can't change the past, Liara. I can't undo the years that we lost. But I can promise you this. I won't leave you again. Not without a fight. Not without showing you that I'm here to stay. I don't want to be the boy who left. I want to be the man who stays. Tears welled up in Lyra's eyes, but she didn't let them fall. She had been so strong for so long, holding everything together. But now, with Ethan standing beside her, she felt as if all her walls were beginning to crumble. She didn't want to admit it, but she could feel her heart opening to him once more. I'm scared, Ethan, she whispered. I'm scared of letting you in. I'm scared of what might happen if we try and fail. Ethan squeezed her hand, his voice firm but gentle. I'm scared too, but I'm willing to take that risk, Liara. I believe in us. I believe in what we could have. For a long time, Liara didn't say anything. She simply sat there, her mind racing with thoughts and emotions she couldn't quite sort through. She'd always been so certain of her own strength, her own independence. But now, with Ethan beside her, she felt vulnerable in a way she had never felt before. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Liara spoke. Maybe we can try. Maybe we can figure it out together. Ethan's heart leaped in his chest. He had been waiting for those words, and hearing them made everything worth it. He smiled softly, his eyes filled with relief and hope. We will figure it out, he said, together. Liara looked up at the stars, her thoughts still tangled. In uncertainty, but for the first time in a long time, she felt a sense of peace. She wasn't sure what the future held, but she was willing to find out. And with Ethan by her side, maybe they could build something new, something beautiful. Something that had once seemed impossible. As the night grew deeper, they sat there hand in hand, watching the stars above. It wasn't perfect, and they both had their doubts, but they also had each other, and for now, that was enough. The days following their heart-to-heart conversation were filled with a quiet understanding. Ethan and Liara began to rebuild what they once had, but it was different now. It wasn't about the past. It was about forging a future together. Liara had allowed herself to believe in the possibility of what could be. Though deep down, the fear of failure still lingered, Ethan understood her hesitation. He had seen it in her eyes every time they shared a moment of peace. He had been through so much on his own, but nothing in his travels compared to the uncertainty he felt here. With Liara, he knew he had to prove himself, not just with words, but with actions. He couldn't rush her, couldn't push her too fast. All he could do was show her, day by day, that he was here to stay. Their days together started to feel more natural. They spent more time outside the village exploring the beautiful lands Liara loved. They walked through the vast fields, past crystal-clear lakes, and climbed the rolling hills that overlooked the vast forests. It was a peaceful existence, and, for once, It felt like they were reconnecting, not just as two people from different worlds, but as partners who had shared something special. But even as their bond grew stronger, Liara couldn't escape the feeling of doubt. She had been through so much before. She had cared for him when he was young, and now she had to trust that he wouldn't leave her again. She knew that she had let him back into her life, but what if he changed? What if after all this time, he wasn't the man she thought he was? Ethan could see the doubt in her eyes, even when she smiled at him. He had promised her he would stay, but he knew that promises were easy to make. Keeping them was another matter entirely. He didn't want to disappoint her, didn't want to be the one to let her down again. The weight of that responsibility felt heavy on his shoulders, but he was determined to prove that he was worth the risk. One day, as they sat together on a rocky ledge overlooking a river, Liara turned to him with a serious expression. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden glow over the landscape. The world around them felt so calm, so peaceful. But there was tension in the air, and Liara could feel it growing. "Ethan," she began, her voice soft but firm. "Been thinking a lot about us, about everything. I can't keep living in the past, but I also can't pretend that everything is just going to work out on its own. I need to know that we're both in this, not just because of the past, but because we believe in a future together." Ethan listened carefully, his heart pounding in his chest. This was the moment he had been waiting for. This was the moment where he had to show her without a doubt that he was willing to fight for them. Couldn't just wait for her to come around. He had to prove that she could trust him, that he was here to stay, no matter what. "I'm all in, Liara," he said, his voice steady. "I came back because I believe in us. I believe in what we could have. I know I can't change the past, but I can be here now. I can be the person you need me to be. I'm not asking you to forget everything that's happened. I'm asking you to trust that I won't leave. Not this time." Liara looked at him, her eyes searching his face for any sign of doubt. She had known him as a boy, but the man before her now was different. He was stronger, more confident, and, most importantly, he was willing to fight for her. For the first time in a long time, she felt herself letting go of the fear, just a little. She had spent so many years building walls around her heart, but now she was starting to wonder if those walls were holding her back. "I want to believe you," Liara said softly, her voice filled with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. "I want to trust that this time will be different. But I need you to understand. I've spent so long building a life without you. I've made my own choices, made my own way. It's not easy to let go of that, to let someone else in again." Ethan reached out, gently taking her hand in his. He could feel the hesitation in her touch, but he also felt the warmth that was starting to return. "I don't want to take anything away from you, Liara. I'm not here to change your life, but to be a part of it. I'll be there for you no matter what. I'm ready to face whatever challenges come our way, but I can't do it alone. You by my side." Liara closed her eyes for a moment, her mind racing. She had always been so independent, so sure of herself. Letting someone else in felt like a risk, a leap of faith. But she couldn't ignore the feelings that had resurfaced. The connection between them was undeniable. She had loved him once, and maybe, just maybe, there was still a chance for them to build something new. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm scared of getting hurt. I'm scared of losing myself in something that might not work out." Ethan's heart ached for her, but he understood. The fear of the unknown was a powerful thing. "Scared too," he said quietly. "I'm willing to take that risk with you, because I believe that whatever happens, we'll be better for it. Together." Liara looked into his eyes, seeing the honesty there. He wasn't asking her to forget the past, but to trust in their future. She had spent so long afraid to take that leap, afraid of the pain that might come with it. But maybe it was time to take that leap. Maybe it was time to believe that something beautiful could come from the risk. Taking a deep breath, Liara smiled, her heart lighter than it had been in years. "All right," she said softly. "Let's take that leap. Together." Ethan's smile was filled with relief and joy. It wasn't the end of their journey, but the beginning of something new. They both knew that there would still be challenges ahead, but they were ready to face them, side by side. With the ring still in his pocket, Ethan knew that this was only the start of a new chapter, and together they would write it. The days that followed their decision were filled with a new kind of excitement. Ethan and Liara were still getting used to the idea of being together again. But it was no longer about promises made long ago. It was about the promise they were building together now. Every morning, Liara would wake up to find Ethan beside her, ready to face the day, and every night they would sit under the stars, talking about the future, their future. It wasn't always easy. There were moments of doubt, moments when they both wondered if they had made the right choice. But every time they faced a challenge, they did it together. Slowly, they were learning to trust each other again. Slowly, Liara was learning to open her heart to him. Ethan was learning to be patient, understanding that the past couldn't be erased overnight. One afternoon, as they walked through the village, Liara noticed the way people looked at them. Whispers spread like wildfire, and curious glances followed them wherever they went. Ethan had come back, and he was different, but there was something more. There was a ring on his finger now, a symbol of their promise, and it had become clear to everyone that Liara and Ethan were not just reconnecting, they were starting something new. Something more. Liara could feel the weight of the attention, but she didn't mind it. She had made her choice, and it was one she could stand by. As they reached the center of the village, she turned to Ethan with a smile. "You're becoming a part of my world, you know," Liara said. "I've always kept my life separate from everything else, but now it's different." Ethan smiled, his heart swelling with love for her. "I've always wanted to be a part of your world, Liara. I never thought it would be like this, but I'm glad it is." They stopped in front of the village's large gathering hall, where a small ceremony was being held to celebrate their return. It wasn't anything grand, but it was significant. It was a public acknowledgement of the bond they had rediscovered, and both of them knew it was important. "Are you nervous?" Ethan asked, looking at Liara with a playful smile. "Maybe just a little," Liara admitted, her voice soft but steady. "It's not every day that you get to start something new with someone, especially when that someone is, well, you." Ethan laughed, a warm sound that made Liara's heart flutter. "I'm not sure I'd call myself someone special, but I'm glad to be here." The ceremony began with a quiet hum of conversation as friends and family gathered around. Liara stood next to Ethan, her hand in his, as they listened to the kind words spoken by the village elders. They spoke about the importance of love, of trust, and of second chances. Liara's heart swelled with emotion as she realized that they weren't just speaking about her and Ethan, they were speaking about everyone, about the power of connection, and about how sometimes love takes time to grow. After the ceremony, there was a moment when everyone turned to them, waiting for them to speak. Ethan squeezed Liara's hand gently, and she looked up at him, their eyes meeting. For a moment, everything else disappeared. There was no audience, no pressure, just the two of them. "I don't know if I have the right words," Ethan said, his voice low and sincere. "But what I do know is that I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I came back because I couldn't live without you, Liara. You mean everything to me." Liara's heart fluttered in her chest. She had spent so many years telling herself that she didn't need anyone, that she was strong enough on her own. But in that moment, she realized that it wasn't about needing someone, it was about wanting someone. It was about choosing each other, day after day. "You're right," Liara said, her voice steady, though her heart was racing. "I don't know what the future holds, but I know I want to face it with you. We've both had our own paths, our own lives. But now we have the chance to build something new together. I'm ready to do that." The crowd around them smiled, some wiping away tears, while others cheered quietly. The village elders nodded, pleased with the words they had heard. Liara and Ethan had come back together, and now they were moving forward, side by side. Later that evening, as the stars twinkled brightly in the sky, Ethan and Liara stood together by the river, just like they had when they first started to reconnect. Liara leaned against him, feeling the warmth of his presence, and for the first time in a long time, she felt completely at peace. "I know it's not going to be easy," Liara said, her voice soft, but I'm ready to try. We've both made mistakes. We've both had to learn and grow. But I believe in us. I believe that together we can make this work. Ethan looked down at her, his heart full. I promise you, Lyara, I'll never take you for granted. I'll never walk away. We'll face everything together, no matter what. Lyara smiled, the trust in her heart finally overcoming her fear. Together, she echoed, her voice filled. With certainty, Ethan reached into his pocket, his fingers brushing against the smooth surface of the ring he had kept hidden for so long. It was small, simple, but it was perfect for them. He pulled it out and gently slid it onto her finger, a symbol of everything they had been through and everything they were about to face. This is for you, he said softly, for the love we have now and the love we will continue to build. Promise, now and forever. Lyara looked down at the ring, her fingers tracing its surface. She had never thought she would be here, standing with him, after everything that had happened. But here she was, and she realized that this was just the beginning of something beautiful. I accept this. Ethan, she said, her voice filled with emotion. I accept you, and I accept the life we will create together. They stood there, hand in hand, as the night stretched on, knowing that the road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but they were ready to walk it together. The stars above them seemed to shine even brighter that night, as if the universe itself was watching over them, blessing the promise they had made, and with that, the future no longer seemed so uncertain. Together, they would face whatever came their way.